Hi, Namaskar. I'm Piya from IndusTV, and today we are here to talk to Rik Mehta, who is running for New Jersey State Senate against Cory Booker. And guess, before I give a brief intro about him, let me tell you, during this tough time, President Trump and Melania are in our prayers, and we all wish them a speedy recovery. So, Rik, welcome to Indus TV. And, I am definitely going to give a brief intro about you. So first, tell me, how are you feeling today?
Yeah. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. We've been up and down this state campaigning, but it's such a pleasure to take a pause out of the campaign. Excited about this election season, probably one of the most important elections we've had in our country to date. So thanks for taking some time out to talk to me.
Thank you for coming here on Indus TV. And, for the listeners and for our viewers, let me tell you that, Dr. Rik Mehta, he is a biotech entrepreneur, an innovator, healthcare policy expert, a licensed pharmacist, and an attorney. And he has graduated from world-renowned Rutgers University as a pharmacist and lawyer. And Rik is married to a beautiful and energetic Rima, and they have 3 little kids. And they also have a cute dog, Dexter. So tell me, I am just looking at your bio, and I feel you're being a very successful professional. What drove you to run for this public office?
Well, you're right, Pia. Thank you so much for outlining my background. I've had the pleasure of doing many things. And let me tell you, we've lived the American dream, and I feel so blessed to have done it. When my father first came to this country 50 years ago, we didn't have much. He had $100 in his pocket. He borrowed some money from his uncles to come here. And he didn't know anybody in this country. 19 years old in 1969. And he took the plane to JFK and a bus to Scranton, Pennsylvania. And he opened up a phone book. Remember, 2 feet of snow in the air. Not knowing anybody in this country, can imagine how intimidating that must be. Looked for an Indian name. They took him in and gave him a hot meal and a roof over his head. And that's how we got it started. I've been blessed, went to pharmacy school, as you said, at Rutgers, and then put myself through law school. I worked overnights at a hospital, Robert Wood Johnson, one of the best hospitals in the state of New Jersey and arguably the country. And I worked overnights just to put myself through law school, to pay for law school. And after that, I went to the FDA. At the FDA, I worked hard to fight against unapproved illegal drugs, many of them being opioid drugs, fighting to protect and promote public health for our country, for the state, and for the nation. And then from there, I went back to start my own businesses. I worked in pharmaceuticals for many years on the scientific side of things, the regulatory and legal side. And I'm also a law professor. I've done many things, Pia, but to get to your question, I've never been a politician. And I say that's probably one of my best attributes. I'm not a career politician. And the reason I jumped into this race is because I'm not happy about the way this state is headed. Our state here in New Jersey has the most out-migration out of any other state in the entire country. That means, to put it more specifically, our state has more people moving out of New Jersey than wanting to move in. And before COVID, it was 44%. It's over 69% because of failed policies and failed leadership. The people that run this state, they don't operate it like a business. And they certainly don't work on things that help the everyday New Jerseyans. I'm a family man, Pia, first. My beautiful wife, as you said, Rima, we also have 3 boys. And I started to look at whether or not New Jersey was going to be right for them. Is New Jersey a place to raise a family? Are there opportunities for all, regardless of race, religion, and creed? And the short of the answer is no. It's a tough state, not just to do business, but to raise a family. And I'm changing that. And that's why I jumped into this race, is because I've lived the American dream, and it's important for me to want to give back to my community that's given us so much, a country which we have such deep appreciation for. It's time for me to serve my country again and put policy over politics.
Absolutely. Very well said. But I just love your slogan. That is, make New Jersey a place to love and not leave. And I have spent most of my life in New Jersey and would love to live here forever. But, all the taxes are very high, including property taxes, which are not affordable. So what do you say? If you get selected to the Senate, what are your tax plans?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is probably one of the most important questions we have. First of all, let me tell you, We have two failed U.S. senators here in New Jersey. One of them happens to be my opponent, Cory Booker, who spent the last 6 years doing nothing in Senate. Now, let me tell you what he's not done, and then I'm going to tell you exactly why to vote for me and my particular tax plan that's not only going to help Americans of Indian origins, but New Jerseyans, Americans all across the state. First thing is Cory Booker's missed more than 65% of the votes in Congress. That's unacceptable. You have one job, and that's there to pass legislations that serve the needs of your state and the people of our great country, and he failed to do that. Why should he deserve 6 more years when he couldn't even spend the last 6 years doing that? He spent 4 of those years attacking President Trump, of which we all know now was a failed witch hunt, wasting millions of taxpayer dollars right there. And then 2 years deciding to run for president, of which he polled less than 4%, because to be frankly honest with you, the rest of America caught up to what New Jersey already knows, that Cory Booker's an empty suit. And that's disappointing. And when you talk about being an empty suit, you're talking about why we have such high poverty rates, especially in Newark, a city that continues to struggle with 30% poverty rates, a failed educational system, and a lead water crisis, public health issues well beyond COVID and exponentially increasing because we don't have strong leaders there. Failed policies for over 50 years by the Democrats. We haven't had a Republican senator in over 50 years in this state. But Piya, you know what else we haven't had? We've never had a person of color and a minority run for the Republican ticket. In fact, I'm the first American of Indian origin to run for United States Senate. And so my father always told me that good governance starts right at the kitchen table. So we're going to make sure that we focus on our tax plan. For one, we're going to talk and work with the president. President Trump will win 4 more years, and we're going to try to bring back our SALT deductions. But bringing back SALT deductions, and for those of you that want to understand that better, SALT, it specifically stands for our state and local taxes and what you can deduce off of your federal tax returns. That's one of the things that has kept people in New Jersey. New Jersey state taxes continues to crush our families. And let me tell you who it most disproportionately impacts. It most disproportionately impacts the middle class and minorities. Many of us who've come to this country that want to buy our house for the first time, or Black Americans trying to move out of inner cities, or zip codes where they know that their health outcomes may be worse than others. Why aren't we focused on those policies that allow for people to continue to achieve success? And Governor Murphy doesn't care about that. He hasn't put forward a plan that helps to reduce taxes, that puts money back into people's pockets so that they can achieve move from lower class to middle class, or middle class to higher upper class. That's the American dream. So we're going to work with the president to restore our SALT deductions. But at the same time, make no mistake, Piya, I'm going to use my Senate seat to make sure we put pressure on our state governor to lower the taxes. It's incredible, it's incredulous, it's elitism, and it doesn't work for the people. Gas tax has gone up. As of October 1st, now everybody pays 9 cents more to a gallon. Millionaires tax. Now, that may sound good in theory, but what does it actually do? It actually crushes the middle class. More and more people are moving out of this state because, you know, if you can afford to, why would you live here? They're changing their residency to Florida. Florida is welcoming New Jersey. Our biggest export of this state is our people to the state of Florida. It's ridiculous. It must stop. So where do you shift that when you increase your social programs without any way to pay for it? It hits the middle class. Who else is going to pay for those taxes?
Right.
So we're going to work on a tax code that benefits the people of New Jersey. We're going to continue to put pressure on the governor to lower taxes. We're going to make it affordable. And like you said, you know, Piya, my campaign slogan is simple. We're going to make New Jersey a place to live, not leave. And we're going to do that by starting to lower taxes, be able to deduct taxes, and put money right back into people's pockets so they can break out of cycles of poverty.
And, you know, talking about unemployment, current unemployment, it is definitely a major concern. And I heard you talk about getting pharma jobs back into New Jersey. You know, how do you plan to do that? In general, how do you plan to help solve unemployment problems?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I'll tell you right now, because of this pandemic, we've seen unemployment rates in the state of New Jersey astronomical. I mean, we're talking about hitting close to 17%. The first is that we have a governor that continues to push failed policies in controlling this disease while crushing our small businesses. It's quite devastating. Let me tell you, New Jersey suffered from the most deaths out of COVID per 100,000 than any other state in the country. And yet our small businesses continue to get crushed. They're not focused on actual policies that stop the spread of the disease while keeping our economy afloat. And so you know who suffers? Small businesses, and that's unacceptable. More than 60% of our businesses have been closed, or small businesses, with more than 30% may never reopen. It's devastating. I'll tell you a quick story about my friend Matt. He owned a gym for 10 years. He built his entire life savings and spent the last 10 years of his life building this small business. He's got 3 kids to feed. His eldest happens to be in class with my eldest. And last month, he had to shut his doors for good. Now he's not sure where he's going to go and where his next paycheck is going to come from his family. And you know who's never reached out to him? Not one single elected official in New Jersey or one person from the health department to talk about how to mitigate the risk of this virus while allowing for the business to stay open. It has been the worst planning I have ever seen as a public health official. So the first step is we're going to get our small businesses back open. We're going to work with them to make sure that we mitigate the risk of this disease and that no one is going to be suffer from any exposure of the risk of COVID while still being able to conduct business. And we see that because you know who has benefited? This quote unquote essential businesses like your big box store, many of which Cory Booker, my opponent, and other Democrats continue to take nice handouts and donations from. They're not focused on the people, they're focused on special interests. And small businesses are not their interest. So that's step one. We're going to revitalize our small business community and make sure funding goes to them to make sure that they have enough to keep their business afloat. Step two, and as my background being in healthcare, medicine, and manufacturing, we are going to bring our medical manufacturing jobs back to New Jersey. Now, let me tell you, Piya, under Obama-Biden's failed administration, more than double the amount of medical manufacturing jobs in China opened up, while most of them here in New Jersey shuttered. That's unacceptable, not only from an economic perspective, but from a national security interest. Now look what's going on here. Essential medicines are being controlled by a government, the Chinese Communist Party, of which we can't trust. They're not a trustable trading partner. We need to continue to do businesses with countries that have our same interest of democracy, interest of freedom, like Israel and India, not China. So when we're talking about active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturing, we're talking about bringing that back to New Jersey. And I got a 3-step plan to do it. Step one, we need to shrink our supply chain, okay? We can't outsource the API. So we got to create incentives for companies to move their API manufacturing back to America, arguably back to New Jersey. It's going to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. Step two, we got to stop spending taxpayer dollars to conduct inspections of overseas manufacturing in China or our trading partners that don't have our best interest. We can do that better. We can use free trade agreements, like I said, with countries that have our interest to make sure that we have free and fair trade that allows for these companies to return and repatriate back to America. Step three, we got to reform the way our government agencies do business. FDA, a beautiful agency, it's been around for over 100 years, does a great job at protecting and promoting public health and keeping our drugs and therapeutics safe and effective. But there's more that we can do because, frankly, over 100 years of administration has also tied up administrators into a lot of what I call a regulatory pretzel. This regulatory pretzel creates billions of dollars of waste, and it translates into billions of dollars of waste in our healthcare system too. So we're going to untangle that. As a law professor and one who teaches this, I know deeply exactly what we need to do. And we need a legislator, a US senator that can work with expertise to fix this regulatory pretzel, save billions of dollars, get safe and effective drugs back on the market, and make sure incentive programs are given to companies that make their drugs right here in the United States of America. And last step, we're going to create transparency. Now, a few months ago, I launched my program called Made in USA, Made in America Drugs. We're going to put country of origin labeling on every drug bottle. Just like I look at the back of my shirt and I know exactly where it was made, so should you with the prescription drugs that you take. That doesn't happen right now. And labeling rules are very confusing. We're going to create transparency, both in pricing and manufacturing. It's going to not only give the American public security and safety to know where their drugs are made from, keep them more informed, but it's going to lower the price of drugs, Piya.
I think, very well said, Rick. Absolutely, you need to know where the drugs are coming from. And, since you were talking about India, just a question came to my head. Being a South Asian heritage, let's talk about India and Kashmir.
Sure.
President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, as everybody knows, they are very good friends. And Republican Party has been a supporter of India. And on the other hand, congressmen and senators, they made recent statements parroting opposing viewpoint around Kashmir, ignoring the exodus of millions of Kashmiris, Kashmiris, and who basically became refugees in their own country. So tell me, what's your position in that?
Yeah, well, it's really disappointing to say, even putting aside the conflict in Kashmir, what I find the most disappointing by Joe Biden, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris is their utter lack of disregard for human rights. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll tell you right now, under Joe Biden's presidency, he's going to want to let New Delhi take necessary steps to restore rights of Kashmiris. And he's already expressed disappointment of the Citizenship Amendment Act. Really, really disappointing. Okay. Cory Booker, same thing. He wants to meddle in the affairs of India, but can't even do his job here home. And so who knows better than geographical partners, especially our most trusted partner in India, mm-hmm. in terms of what's needed to stop years and years of discrimination, human rights violation, and the religious persecution of so many good people. Mm-hmm. At some point, we got to think outside of the box. And so I support the Republican Party's position. I support Prime Minister Modi in wanting to take the right and necessary and frankly, bold steps that are needed to stop that. We got to look at it from a determinants perspective. If we're truly focused on ending human rights violations, ending religious persecution, ending discrimination, mm-hmm. then we need to let those men and women who are ready to stand up and do the right thing, think outside of the box. We need to let them do that. America should not get involved in those affairs. And I support President Trump's position on this. I think it's high time that we do that. Now, look, President Trump himself has been nominated for 3 Nobel Peace Prizes. I think he knows what he's talking about.
Right. Listening to you and talking to you and with your credentials and passion, not sure why anyone would want to vote for your opponent, Cory Booker. Give me your comparison, point by point, on your policies.
Sure. Well, first, let me tell you, Cory Booker, the biggest difference between us from the biggest picture is that I do my job. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm blessed, but I got 4 degrees, Piya. So when I speak with authority, I speak with experience, and I speak mm-hmm. with academic and educational credentials. Mm-hmm. Cory Booker, as I said, has missed more than 65% of the votes. He had one job and he failed to do it. Even when he was mayor of Newark, he left the city in shambles. Okay. He was the head of the Watershed Commission. And now there's a lead water crisis in Newark, only parallel to Flint, Michigan. What a disaster. And who does that impact the most? Our children. Okay, Piya, when I jumped in this race, I jumped because I have 3 boys. And I care about the future of our state and our country. I care about what America is going to be for my 3 boys growing up. I care about creating generational wealth and policies that help children be successful, mm-hmm. especially in our inner cities. Those that grow up or are born into poverty, allowing for opportunity, such as opportunity zones and other ways in which we can create voucher programs, school choice, and the ability to break out from zip codes that continues to dictate the way our children, especially our Black and brown communities, mm-hmm. can achieve success. That is the American dream. My father was born and raised in poverty, only $100 in his pocket, as I mentioned, but we have achieved the American dream. I know how to do it. 50 years of failed leadership by Democrats in the state of New Jersey in our U.S. Senate. Mm-hmm. And what do we have to show for it but increased rates of poverty, unemployment, high taxes, and breaking our small businesses? So point by point, Piya, I'm going to fight for the people of New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make sure that more federal funding comes to New Jersey than we send back. New Jersey is the last in the entire state to receive federal dollars percentage-wise to what we send in taxes to Washington. Why? Mm-hmm. Because you have cronyism between Murphy, Booker, and Menendez. Unacceptable. We can create and use that to create stimulus programs and jobs. Like, for example, our Gateway project that has gone on stalled without funding being secured. Cory Booker, 6 years, hasn't been able to do that because he doesn't know how to reach across the aisle, shake hands, and get the job done. We got to create jobs. We got to reform the way FDA operates. We got to bring our medical manufacturing jobs back. And when I get to Washington, I'll make sure they come to New Jersey because other states are already doing it. Look, Puerto Rico has implemented new tax programs that are trying to attract pharmaceutical manufacturing back there. Why hasn't New Jersey? Right. Because they're too caught up in their own rhetoric, and it's disappointing. Cory Booker has had the opportunity to lead, and he's failed us consistently. And so when I get to Washington, I'm going to make sure that I bring authentic leadership and family values back to Washington.
Wonderful. I'm just curious to know, when are you going to be debating Cory Booker?
That is $1 million question. So Cory Booker, 25 days ago, had accepted on the news publicly that he would debate Rik Mehta. In fact, he made it a point to say that every campaign he's ran and every opponent he's had has given a fair chance to debate, to express the issues. A debate is a referendum on the record of an incumbent, and it gives the opportunity for the challenger to express what he stands for, meaning myself, and why I'm different than Cory Booker and why I deserve the job and he doesn't. Piya, I've been campaigning for 12 months and it's been the best job interview I've ever had. But Cory Booker and the Democrats continue to manipulate the media and keep our message out of it. It's unacceptable. In fact, Cory Booker hasn't been campaigning in New Jersey at all. And so he still hasn't answered our calls to schedule a debate. He continues to duck, and we have what we call universal vote by mail. In my opinion, it's highly unconstitutional, so we'll see how the court proceedings go. But the bottom line is people have already started voting. They deserve to know who they're voting for, why they should give Cory Booker a second chance, or why should they elect Rik Mehta to go to Washington to represent them. It's the only way a free and fair democracy works, and America should lead by example. Cory Booker should lead by example. He should answer our calls, not just to me, but many reporters that have reached out wanting to host the debate, that he continues to duck them. He's waiting, I think, for most of the ballots to be turned in before he decides to, give us an opportunity to debate. So it's very disappointing, but not surprising. For a man that's missed more than 65% of the votes, I'm not surprised that he hasn't returned our phone call here either. He doesn't like to do the job he's been given. He continues to have his head elsewhere.
You know, Rik, I know you're very passionate about small business. So tell me, how do we support a small business in New Jersey?
Great question, Pia. Go shop at them. Give them a fair chance. Look, a lot of small businesses continue to suffer. Tip them more. Go out, visit, use your platform, advocate for them. We're standing up for them. In fact, I made my campaign site at a small business called the Attila's Gym. They continue to get beaten up by Democrat Governor Phil Murphy, who was taking advantage of them. They've had 0 COVID cases for the amount of time they've held their doors open, when we know that more than 50% of the deaths have been in age 65 and above. They continue to focus on gym goers where the average age is much, much younger than that. In fact, they've had no COVID cases. So we made it one of my campaign sites. And the governor continued to make disparaging comments, using his attorney general's office to make disparaging comments against them and our ability to raise money. Now, I've invited the gym owners to join my finance committee and hold political events. Political speech is the most protected speech in our country. And Governor Murphy wants to shut that down. So it's unfortunate, but get out there and support your small business. Go out there and be patrons and be advocates. We can all do this together, and we will save our small businesses.
Wonderful. And lastly, I want to ask you, how do we find Rik on mail ballot?
Well, I'm up and down the state. You can always catch me in any of my meet and greets. And then go online. Go to rikfornj.com. That's RIKFORNJ.com. When you get your ballot at home, look for me. Depending on which county you are, it will be in a different column, but it will be the Republican ticket. We got one of the strongest tickets in the entire state, starting right at top with President Trump and with Rik Mehta right below it. And then don't forget.
And if anybody has a question, can they reach out to you or anything? Absolutely.
Call me. Call our line, 908-373-5800. give us a call. We're helping everyone who has questions about how to fill it in. And also, we're trying to report in fraudulent or what we call phantom ballots. Many people are receiving ballots for people that have either been deceased for many years or people that no longer live at that address. The amount of voter fraud is going to be something to watch for. Again, this will all be challenged in court, but it's important for everyone to get out the vote. Fill out your ballot. It's 3 steps. It's a fairly simple process. Tuck it into the envelope. Go to a secure Dropbox location, depending on which county you live in. There's 21 counties in New Jersey. Find the county you live in. Find this closest secure Dropbox, not the mailbox, a secure Dropbox. You can go to the county clerk's website or go to rickfornj.com, look it up, and drop off your ballot. Do it today. Get out the vote. We have to vote. If you want lower taxes, lower regulation, if you want New Jersey a place to do business, if you truly want New Jersey a place to live and not leave, if you want generational wealth, if you don't want your money going to failed social programs that Cory Booker will continue to push forward and try to position, now is the most important election we've ever had. This is your opportunity to vote for Republican ticket, vote for Rik Mehta, and vote for those people that'll continue to fight for your rights and to fight for your money and fight for your children.
Thank you so much, Rik. On behalf of IndusTV, I would like to thank you and wishing you all the best.
Thank you, Piya. It's such a pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.